All right, everyone. Well, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. My name is Terry Hatmaker, and I'm joined today by Chris Widener of our marketing department and Alex Clay, our CEO. So what are we going to be looking at today? The first thing we want to look at is the system requirements for CDM Plus 11.1. Then we're going to look at some new features, and we're going to demonstrate those features for you. Once we're through the demonstration portion, we'll then look ahead at some of those items that didn't make it into the initial release, but we're already working on, and hopefully we'll get in the next couple of months. And then after that, we'll move to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Now, before we get started with looking at the new features, I want to let you know that we're going to have a couple of more webinars in the next 2 weeks. Next week, we'll be having a webinar on the new mobile receipts app, which is in CDM Plus Mobile 2.3, which was released recently. And then on the 12th of November, we will showcase the new Fee Assist that is part of our new Engage Complete system. Well, let's first look at some system requirements. If you're on Windows, we want to make sure that you understand that CDM Plus 11.1 requires a 64-bit Windows computer. This is very important because if you don't have it, CDM Plus 11.1 is not going to run. And if you are a payroll user, you will definitely need to upgrade to CDM Plus 11.1 for payroll in 2021. So you need to look now to see if you're going to need any necessary upgrades or updates to your operating system. Now, as you can see, we're going to support a number of Windows versions, but all of those have that x64 at the end. We also will be supporting Windows 7 and Windows 8 with CDM Plus 11.1. But for Windows 7 for sure, maybe Windows 8, that will we will not be supporting those versions of Windows in our next major release next year, which will be CDM Plus 12.0. If we look at the Mac, we're going to support Mac OS 10.13, which is High Sierra, 10.14 Mojave, and 10.15 Catalina. Now, you may be wondering, what about the new operating system that Apple is going to be releasing here in the maybe in the next month or so, which is Mac OS 11 Big Sur? Well, that's still in beta. Apple hasn't given us a time frame when they're going to do their general release. And so we're watching that. We're looking into it. And when they release the final release, we'll ensure that CDM Plus 11.1 will work on Mac OS 11. All right, so now I want to turn our attention to what everyone wants to see, and that's some of the new features in CDM Plus 11. The first new feature that I want to highlight is merging giving units. So I have the giving units record window open, and as you can see, I have duplicate records for Sarah A. and Sarah and Bill Martin. Now, in this particular example, we're going to say that Sarah and Bill just got married, and Sarah's been a long-term member of this church. She has gifts and other things already associated with this particular giving unit. Well, what we want to do here is we want to be able to merge those because they want her giving, which is part of their giving, to be merged into this one giving unit. And so the way we do that is we're going to select both of these giving units. And when I do, over here on the left-hand sidebar, there's going to be a new merge option. So I'm going to click on that, and it brings up the merge facility. Now, the first thing you have to do when you're thinking about this merging of two or more records is you have to identify which one is going to be the destination record. Well, in this case, we're going to make this record the destination record. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and I'm going to drag this over into this dotted rectangle. And so now that is going to be my destination record. And it gives us some instructions of click next to merge records. So this record is going to be merged into this record. And so now I'm going to click on next. And now we have a window that shows the different fields, and we see what the final record is going to be. Here is the destination record, and you can see it's all highlighted in blue. And then here's our merge record. Now, if, for instance, I don't want to have a pending code from this particular record, and see there is no pending code here, what I can do is if I want to use any of these records from the merge, all I need to do is come over here and click in that cell. And now the final record is going to use that information, not the information that's from the destination record. Also, if I want to, I can add some, I can make some changes to this. Like for instance, we have an ampersand here, and if I want to, I can change that to "and." And I could also come down and I can enter in a comment here if I wanted to. And now I have my final record set the way I want, and I'm ready to merge. And so all I do is click on next. Now this brings up the window that shows the items that are going to be merged into the other record. And we see here we have some recurring contribution setups as well as some contributions. And so now that we know what we're merging and we're okay with it, we just click merge, and it asks us if we want to proceed, and we say yes. Now it is merging the information from that merge record into the destination record. It's taken and merged anything and everything that's associated with those recurring gifts. It could be pledge records. If one of those records was created from Engage, because that could be a scenario that you would run into, it will take care of merging the stewardship information over into the new record. So whatever the situation is that gives you a duplicate record, this particular facility is going to be your go-to to merge giving unit records. Now, with that, let's turn our attention over to accounting. We've made a number of enhancements in accounting. And so the first thing I want to do is go to invoice records. Now, a lot of the features that have been added to accounting this year are related to the development of the mobile receipts app. However, the functionality that's been included in this does not require that you use the mobile receipts app. So I just want you to keep that in mind. If you don't use mobile receipts, these features are still there for you. Now, in this particular example here, you see that I've brought up the invoice records window, and it is showing just those items that have not been posted. Now, in previous versions of CDM Plus, that's all you could see in invoice records. But if we were going to have mobile receipts where you could scan the receipt and associate that receipt and attach it to that invoice, we needed a way for you to be able to access those posted invoices. Well, in 11.1, now you have the option of being able to see all of the invoices, whether they've been posted or not. And since I have already selected all here, as you can see, by default, it's filtering out only those that haven't been posted. But down here, if I click on filtered, it is now going to show me all of the items that have already been posted, as well as those items that haven't been posted. Another enhancement that we added is the ability to be able to attach in those receipts to an invoice. Like I was saying with mobile receipts, you could scan in an image of your receipt in mobile and then attach it to that invoice. Well, we have to have a way in CDM Plus for you to be able to view that. And so what we've done is we've added a user fields tab. Okay. Now, again, you don't need mobile receipts. Let's take an example here. Let's say that you have purchased a new computer and you've already, you've got the invoice and you just need to, you want to be able to attach that invoice, that the paper invoice to this invoice in CDM Plus. Well, over here on my desktop, I've got a PDF. I scanned this particular invoice in and saved it as a PDF. So now I can come to user fields, click on change, and down here in the bottom left of this window here, I can click on add user field. Now, I've already created a type called scanned invoice. If you're using mobile receipts, it's going to automatically put it under the type called mobile scan. So since I scanned this invoice, I'm going to select scanned invoice. And this is a raw data field. If you're familiar with our user fields, you'll know what I mean. And that means I can load a PDF, an image, a Word doc, anything, okay? So I select this payment type, this user field type, and now I click on load. And on my desktop is this invoice, and I click open. And now I've saved the PDF invoice to this invoice record. Once it's there, I can click preview, bring it up. I can even retrieve that out of the database and have another copy of it. So technically, if you did not want to keep this invoice copy here, this PDF that's on my desktop, if I wanted to, I could delete it because I could always retrieve it again from within the database. Now, another enhancement we made to invoices is the ability to jump to an original invoice that's been paid by credit card. Okay, here's an example of one. I've paid this by a credit card, MasterCard, okay, and it's to the vendor of Jimmy John's. Now, I'm like, okay, I understand what this is, but I want to see if there's more detail on the original invoice. Well, the way you would do this in 11.1 is you highlight this, and now under the Go menu, there's a new invoice option. And so we click on invoice. And now this brings up the original Jimmy John's invoice. You can see the payee is Jimmy John's, and here's 32. And I see, well, there's not any real detail beyond what the $32 says. But it's a very quick way for us to move between a credit card payment and its original invoice. Now, another thing about credit card invoices is that we've added the ability that once it's posted, you'll be able to see the actual vendor that, or let's say it's a vendor code, but you'll actually see the credit card that was used because its vendor code will be at the beginning of the description. Let me show you by going over into Ledger by Accounts. That's not the one I wanted. So let me go back so I can go back to this invoice. This is the 28th, that's why. I know none of you make those mistakes like that, so I'm sorry that I did. It's, happens when you get older. So, all right, so here is the youth ministry expense and Jimmy John's. And you can see here just before the description that I entered, there's now the vendor code for MasterCard. So now you'll be able to see this information in ledger reports or even in the ledger itself by clicking on the ledger entry go button. And you can see that we now show the vendor code. And it gives you a way that you could actually go and search on the description field for those codes. Okay, so continuing with our theme of accounting, we are going to now move to some changes that we've made to mark invoices to pay. So under the mark invoices to pay, you know that you can select the specific payment method like check, credit card, or auto draw, and then you can set the asset or the card that's going to be used. So let's say I want to pay some of these, and I know that these have already been paid by credit card. So I would select credit card here, and we're just going to come over here and we're going to say that it's to my credit card. And we went to Applebee's and Jimmy John's and Home Depot and this. So these ones that we want to pay. Now, there's this new column here called account. Now, this column is showing me the card or asset in which I'm using to pay for this particular payee. So let's say that for the Home Depot invoice here, I have selected the wrong credit card. Well, I don't have to go down here and reset things. I just go to this line, click on this dropdown, and now I select Chase Bank. And so it's a real fast way for you to be able to go in and change or even set the account that you want once you designate the type of payment you want to do. So even like here with Big Electric, if I needed to change this asset, I can click here and I could see all the different assets that are available for me to choose from, okay? We believe this is a good way to enhance your workflow within your invoices and speed up that process maybe a little bit. Another area of accounting that we've enhanced is deposit processing. Now, let's say that you've come into deposit processing and you want to be able to look at those items that you have already processed, and you know that you forgot to print one of the posting reports. Well, in the past, you didn't have the ability to reprint a deposit processing posting report. Well, now you do. If I come into here and I click on history, this shows all of the different deposits that I've already processed and posted. But let's say for this August 30, let's say the September 1st item here, that I forgot to print a posting report. Well, you can see that when I selected that, the print button up here is now active. And if I click print, and let's just print this to screen, you can see now I've just reprinted that August 7, what was it? August or September 1st deposit. And it has all of the items that were associated with that deposit when you posted it. Now, another thing you can do is, let's say you need to unpost a deposit. Well, now you have that option in 11.1. So we'll come down here to this August 7th one with $930 gross. And when I select that, up in the upper right, mark for unprocessing now is active, and this is a new icon. So if I click on that, this is now marked for unprocessing, and I click continue, and it says yes. And now if I go back to the active ones, I see that the August 7th deposit is now been unprocessed. I can see all of the different accounts. And so now I can come in here, double click an item, look at it, make sure everything was correct. Now, what this has also done is if I bring up the ledger entry window and I go to last entry made, you'll see for the transaction date of August 7th, now there's a journal entry. And this entry is an offsetting entry for reference 428. So what unprocessing has done is not only moved it over so you could process it again, it's also automatically created the void for you in ledger entries. Moving on, we've also made some enhancements to make your checks look better. We have heard people say that they need to be able to not show this $sign that's pre-printed on all of our checks. And so what we wanted to do was, you want us to find a way of turning that off. Well, in CDM plus 11.1, you can now turn that off. So if I click on modify and I select this amount field here and come down to item settings. And what I want to do is up here with these tabs, I want to scroll over and I want to go to options. Now under options, you now see this item that says don't set $sign. Basically, hide the $sign. So I'm going to check that, close that, and click save. Now, if we look at this particular check preview, you notice that there's no $sign showing. So if I was to print this, that $sign would not print on those check formats that you all have that have a pre-printed $sign. So you wouldn't be seeing double $signs. And really the last thing within like the accounting and payroll area is I want to look at we've enhanced payroll with the ability of expanded state payroll calculations, okay? if you look at this example, this employee in the state of Mississippi, you look at their withholding setup here. Now you have more options here to set that more relates to the state's requirements and what those employees can select when they're signing up for their state withholding. So like if I click on change here, you can see under marital status, now it's more defined. Married, both spouses employed, married, one spouse employed. You can set that. You can also set dependents. And in Mississippi's case, they have a personal exemption, and you can select which one they selected, if any, okay? Now, if you come in and you're one of the states that we have redone the state calculations, you can come into CDM Plus and not do anything. In CDM Plus 11.1, you don't have to come in. If you don't come in and change any of your employee records, it's going to calculate just like it calculated in 11.0. But if you come in here and you take and modify your employee setup to match what they had originally given you, then what it's going to do is it's going to calculate the taxes exactly the way the states require. Okay? This is just a feature that we're trying as we continuously enhance and tighten up our payroll system to give you the best system available. And there's a number of other states like Minnesota and Illinois and California and Alabama and a few others. If you want to see a full list of that, Chris is going to put a link to our Help Center document called What's New in CDM Plus 11.1, and you'll see a full list of those states. All right, so now let's kind of change gears and let's look at some of the enhancements we've made for CDM Plus with respect to Engage. Now, as many of you know, we are in the process of moving and migrating away from web ministry tools and moving all of it under Engage. Well, one of the things that we had to do in that process was we had to give you a way to identify and set administrative access to those individuals you want to have administrative access. Okay, so you could create a user in web ministry tools and they could come in and they could go in and set up modifying Engage settings. They could look at payment administration and so forth. Well, in Engage, you're going to ultimately not need to go to web ministry tools. You should have a way of being able to set the access level of an individual. And so we are doing that through CDM Plus. In CDM Plus individual records, you can see an individual's online credentials. You could always see the username, but now there's this new option called roles. And we see here for Paul Hatmaker that his role is standard. Now, when an individual creates an Engage account, by default, their role is going to be defined as standard. If you want an individual to have administrative access to Engage, then you, the organization, must come into their individual record and change that access to administrator. Now, we want Paul to have administrative access, but what does that mean over in Engage? So let's first look at what Engage looks like when you have a role as standard. So we'll log in here and let's go under the Engage menu, and this will give us an idea of what changes have been made. You can see that we have the standard items under the menu here. Now, we want to make Paul an administrator of Engage. So I'm going to come here and under online credentials, I'm going to click change here. And now you can see I have a drop down that says administrator and standard. So I'm going to select administrator and I'm going to click OK. Once I've saved that, now I can go back over into Engage and just reload the page. Let's look under the Engage menu. And now you'll see an admin option in the Engage menu. If I select that, you can see that here are the organization setups for Engage. And you also have the ability to look at expired credit cards, do searches on transactions, and even make one-time charges. Okay, so now you can set administrative access for users to have access to Engage settings through CDM Plus individual records. And finally, what I want to do is take a look at some of the new features that we've added to the Notice browser in CDM Plus 11.1. So we'll open up individual emails. And under the Notice option, we're going to click the Select Add button, and this brings up the Notice browser. In this window, you can now determine which, by just looking, you can determine which notices have restrictions on them, i.e. little padlocks here, and you can see which notices you have ownership for and which ones you don't. So let's say I've been tasked by the organization to clean up some of our older notices and emails that we've sent. And I come up to this and I want to get rid of some of these. Well, you can see like the June 2015 newsletter, there's not this circle with a slash, so that means I have ownership of this. But these others, I don't have ownership. For me to be able to delete any of these particular items, I need to have ownership. Well, before you would have to get out of this, go to administration. Well, not in 11.1. If you want to take ownership of a particular notice and you have administrative access set in CDM Plus, I can come down here like this October 2020 newsletter. I can select that and then right click it. And now I have this option of taking ownership. And it says, are you sure you want to do this? Because it can't be undone. So you click yes. And now you can see that the red slash is gone. And I can do this with all of these that are, any and all of these that are not under my ownership, okay? Now also, if I select one that's not owned by me, the delete button in the upper left is grayed out. But if I select this one that I just took ownership on, you'll see that the delete button is active. So now I can delete this and start cleaning up my notices. What if you have a lot of notices and you want to find something? Well, we've added a search function to the Notice browser now. And so you can now search on description and subject. So let's say I want to search on and find something that is for Vacation Bible School. So I can say VBS. And you can see as I type, it's already bringing up notices that have anything to do with those letters. And so here, once I get to VBS, I see that I have this notice called VBS invitation. Lastly, we've also added the ability to do multiple select which would give you the ability. So like if I selected this one and this one, I could then take and click and drag and move these over to, say, attendance letters, okay? Or I could take these and delete these. So you could have multiple selected notices and just in one click, select them and then click in one click to delete, it would be gone. The last thing I want to show you is something that I think everyone is going to be happy to see. So I'm going to select this VBS invitation and I'm going to choose that. Now, how many of you have wanted to add a hyperlink to an email notice? As I'm going to bring up the editor, and you can see that we've put this link in, the entire link of what we would normally put in. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do is take this link and we're going to copy it, but we want to take this word and make that a link. Well, in 11.1, you can do that. You highlight it, click insert. Now you have an option called hyperlink. Select that. It has already put the text here in the display text, and I can come here and I can paste that link here, and I can even put a tooltip. So like if I wanted to, I could just copy that, paste that same link in there and hit insert. Now, as you can see, it's now a link, where this, when I roll over it, it doesn't turn into a hand, but over here it does. And see, there's the tooltip that shows you, oh, that's the link. That's the correct link. Now, if I just left click that, I can go to that website, or I can edit it and go right to that hyperlink format window, or I can remove that link and see it left here, the word here, because that was there before. It just removed the hyperlink from. Well, I know that you guys have wanted this, and I think that this is going to make a lot of people happy, and we hope that we hope we've done that. So we're just going to close this, and now I want to focus our attention back on to our slides here. And I want to look at some optimizations. One of the things about CDM Plus 11.1 is we have tried to optimize and refine the program. And in this table here, you can see that we have done a lot to enhance the speeds as well as the size of some of the installers. Payroll direct deposit. For some of you, you're going to see up to 45 times faster performance when going through and transmitting a direct deposit. Charging an ACH is now 10 times faster. Charging a credit card is 2 times faster. And saving in the ledger is 25% faster. And from a speed segment of, having to download different installers, we've made the full installer of Windows 2 times smaller. And we've made the web update for all of our installers 2 times smaller. So we really think that with these optimizations, with the features that I've gone over, plus the features that you'll find in that help document on the Help Center, we think that 11.1 is going to help make you more efficient in your everyday workflow when using CDM Plus. And before I turn it over to Alex, I want to emphasize one more thing. And that is, I said this earlier, but I want to really make sure everyone gets it, is coming in 2021, you must be using CDM Plus 11.1 if you are using payroll. If you do payroll out of CDM Plus, you must be on 11.1. So please make sure that your Windows computer systems, your Mac systems meet the system requirements for 11.1. Well, now I want to turn this webinar over to Alex, and he's going to look at some of the things that we're still working on. Alex?
Thank you, Terry. Really appreciate you for going through that walkthrough and showing us some of the new features here in 11.1. So I wanted to give everybody sort of a sense of some work that the development team still has ongoing. A few things that didn't make it under the deadline to get out the door with this week's release, and a few more that we're planning to release in 11.1 before we kind of call that feature done and move on to CDM Plus 12. Part of this pressure to get us all onto the new version to support things like new tax form, new tax tables, more accurate payroll calculations, is to make sure that we got 11.1 out the door more or less now in October. And that's going to give us 4, 6, 8 weeks to follow up with everyone and make sure they've upgraded. Because the last thing we want is for somebody to come into the office after the new year or sign on from home and try to run their payroll and they're stuck. And you know, for one, they're dead in the water, but for two, then they're going to call in and try to get some help, and they'll be on the list with everyone else that needs help with their normal January routines. So we wanted to go ahead and ship everything that we had today, but we've got a few more features that are up our sleeves, and I want to walk you all through that. And if we need some clarification, I'll be happy to answer questions during the Q&A. So first is something called the 1099 NEC, and this is for your payroll or your tax reporting on the 1099 form. Historically, most 1099 activity we see out of CDM Plus uses box 7 for non-employee compensation. So you have a contractor that you're paying, you're going to send them a 1099 MISC form at the end of the year to show them the monies you paid them in the prior year. The IRS earlier this year announced that they are transitioning reporting that's historically been in box 7 of the 1099 to a form that is old but new again, called the 1099 NEC. Apparently, this form was used just up into the start of the 80s, and NEC stands for non-employee compensation. So the IRS is bringing this back, and this is going to be how you report taxes or monies paid, sorry, for non-employee compensation. The good news is that you will have to do very, very little for this. Our tax form provider, Atrix, already has this well in hand. And once we finish our integration and testing with Atrix on both Mac and Windows, when you install the CDM Plus update that has this form, any vendor that was configured to print in box 7 will automatically flip over to print a 1099 NEC. So there'll be the very, very little change you need to do. This will just produce compliant forms. Now you do need, to print those on the red ink, just like you have in the past with the 1099 MISC, or you can certainly e-file those. So if you want to print them on red ink, you might want to go ahead and look at getting some stock. Chris, we've got a link to a discount that our payroll form provider, Dynamic Systems, is running. I think, Chris, if you could drop that link into the chat, this would be a great time to go ahead and get those forms ordered. They've got a special going through the end of this week. But the 1099 NEC will be a very important feature that'll be coming out well before January. Another feature that we're very excited to implement is the ability to import bank reconciliation. The intention here is that you'll be able to go to your bank's website, and download a QIF file, which is the Quicken or QuickBooks file format for your bank reconciliation. Load that up into the CDM Plus Bank Rec, and CDM Plus will go through and match pretty much all the items that it's able to, and basically say, here's everything I found. Here's the items I couldn't find. Go ahead and connect these off of your uncleared deposit list. Our expectation here is that this is going to take a lot of the tedious work of a bank rec off your plate, save you time, help with accuracy. And we're very excited to get this built out and put together. So that will be available in CDM Plus 11.1 a little bit later on. There was a question in the chat earlier, which was a great one, asking if you could merge vendors. The merge window that Terry pulled up is designed to be reusable and generic throughout the program. Right now, we just have this on giving unit records, because we want to make sure that we kind of get all the pieces working smoothly. We handle any sort of interesting situations we didn't consider. But as we sort of live into that merge feature, and it seems to be working well, we expect to offer that merge feature for address records, individuals, customers, vendors, possibly employees. We're looking at things like maybe giving funds or even accounts. If you have a couple of accounts in your chart of accounts, want to merge those together, we think this would be a great tool to offer. So the merge is going to be much more system-wide than just giving units, and that's going to be coming out again. For those of you that are using Engage Billing, you've been asking for, and we're very eager to offer a Engage tab on your customer record. So much like in contributions, you can go to your giving unit and you can click on Engage if you have the correct access, and you can help them set up their gifts. You can cancel a gift if somebody calls and asks for that. You can basically administer their Engage account. We're going to be adding the same option over on customer records for anyone that's using Engage Billing. Engage Billing connects directly to accounts receivable. So if you're doing any childcare, if you rent out your facilities, if you have any needs to be able to invoice people and collect payments, Engage Billing lets folks do online bill pay directly into CDM Plus. And as we sort of announced last month, anybody that's got the Engage Complete plan, you now have full access to the Engage Billing. One feature that is just about ready, we kind of pulled it just at the last minute for a little more testing, is what's called failed transaction processing. So this is a feature to handle the situation where somebody has made a gift or a payment online, and that gift or payment then fails. An example might be they mistyped an account number, or perhaps they had insufficient funds. Today, the system really doesn't do anything with that. With this new feature, once a day, we are going to look for any transactions that failed, and then we will first notify the donor or the payer to let them know that your gift or registration payment or online bill pay or what have you was not successful, and then we'll tell them why and ask them to retry it. The office staff you'll get a notice of this as well, and then we'll update the CDM Plus record accordingly, put in a reversing gift or delete out the pending gift, or reversing registration. So this is an automatic system. There's really nothing you need to turn on. We're just going to handle some of those situations a little bit better. Another feature that was about ready and we pulled at the last minute, and by the way, I do want to thank all of our beta testers that have been giving us lots of feedback throughout late spring and the summer. For any of you that installed the beta last week and got some duplicate addresses in your email, I apologize for that. That was caused by some late development on this feature, and we decided to pull it out so we can get it right. The intent here is that we have some clients that use a model where if they might have a child or an elderly family member that's in the system with their own email address, they also would like, as a parent or a caregiver, to get a copy of any email sent to that person. So I'm in there with my own email address. My daughter, Ava, she's in the database with hers in CDM Plus. But I'd also like to get a copy of any email that's sent to Ava. So what our clients are doing is they're basically putting, you know, the parent's email address in there twice, but linking one to the parent, one to the child. If you send an email BCC, that's no problem. But if you send the email individually, CDM Plus tries to remove duplicate emails, and you get some confusing results from that. So what we're changing this to do is that when you send an individual email notice, if you have an email address in there multiple times, but those are linked to different people, well, you'll get that email multiple times with each of those people's information. So it's just kind of a more natural way to receive those emails, and that'll be coming out soon. So those are basically, you know, the features that as we sort of head through into November and December, you're going to be able to you'll see updates when CDM Plus checks for updates, along with any fixes for anything that comes up. We'll be starting our annual review of tax table changes in about 2 weeks here. Most of the time, those are automatically shipped out, but sometimes there are some more significant changes, require some program level changes. So we'll be watching for those and shipping those as those are available. Now, we're currently getting geared up for and looking at our development heading into 2021. Terry mentioned CDM Plus 12.0, which will be out later in the fall next year. And CDM Plus a number of years ago, we sort of moved to a model where we have major releases, 10, 11, 12, that have some larger features, and then releases that kind of come back and refine and improve, like 10.1, 10.2, and 11.1. So we're sort of making sure what we've got is working really well and getting ourselves set up for the next round of major enhancement. So I know some things that I'm very excited to put on the development schedule and to work with our team to bring out for you. But I also want to make sure that we're in step with the needs that you have. I want to know what CDM Plus can help do and do better that's going to empower you and your ministry and help you achieve your mission. So we've put together a survey that has some kind of tentpole larger features, and we're going to be sending that out here in the next week or two. And I'd appreciate any feedback you can give. The idea is to ask sort of ranked from one on down. I think there's about 9 items there so far. Which is going to give the most impact to your ministry. Now, I will say we're just collecting information here about what people need, kind of mixing that in with some other requests we've had and some other products that we want to build out. So I can't guarantee that we're going to build everything on that list, but the more information that we have about what's the most meaningful and useful to you, the better decisions we can make about what sort of gets in this release or the next one or the one after that. So be on the lookout for that, and in advance, I greatly appreciate your input there. That's all looking forward to CDM Plus 12 in 2021 and beyond. So that's a brief update on kind of what we have going ahead. So Terry, I believe next we're up for our Q&A. We will be, this webinar is being recorded. Once we get a chance to sort of edit it and clean it up, we'll upload that to YouTube, and you'll be able to get a recording to watch again, to share with your staff or your colleagues, and we'll send you an email link to the email address you used when registering for this webinar. So for the Q&A, Chris, who do we have up at the top here?
D. Harold, do you have a question?
Yes, on the 1099s, I have 2 taxpayer IDs that I have to pay out of, and every year I have to go in there and unclick one set, print those 1099s, go back and click all the other ones, print those 1099s. Is there going to be some way that y'all can help me with that so I can pull them via one tax ID and all the 1099s load for it, and then 1099s load for the other?
That's a great suggestion. Let me see if the developers can get that in place. Essentially, I think we need to make sure that you've got the right payer tagged on your ledger entries, and then we just pull those through correctly on the 1099 forms. So I'll need to check on that, and we can let you know. If you could send in the chat, send Chris your email address so we can follow up with you once we take a look at that. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Right here. You're welcome.
All right, Sue Caps, do you have a question?
Yeah, on the NEC, is that the same as the 1099? They have to have earned $600 or more to have that produced?
I believe so. Yes. My understanding is that the criteria hasn't changed. It's just anyone where you would have sent them a 1099 MISC form with box 7 selected. So if you had box 7 for non-employee compensation selected, they're just now going to get the 1099 NEC form.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mary, do you have a question?
Yeah, on the feature you're talking about with notices of being able to delete ones that other people created by transferring the ownership. Is that a setting that the administrator can make for any user account, or is it only the administrator can do that if they're logged into CDM?
So yes, you have to have administrative access on your user to be able to take ownership of a notice.
Okay.
And to be clear, the main thing that taking ownership does is it allows you to delete the notice. You can, with the access settings, grant other people access to modify the contents of the notice, and they do not need to be an administrator to have that access.
Right. So I guess it's a very long, complicated story, but we have we have an administrator account, and one person, lords over that and won't let anybody touch it and will administer bits and pieces to other people.
Okay.
So
at
least the way ours is set up, there's only one administrator, nobody else like on their personal account has the ability to be the administrator.
So adding a permission to say user can take ownership of notices that the administrator could grant to your account would solve that for you. That's a great idea. Let me make a note of that.
Right, because essentially I'm the administrator of everything but like the finance stuff.
Sure, that makes
because we started it with the finance. The administrator is therefore considered part of the finance people. So
got it. I will make a note of that. That's a really good idea.
That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Joe, do you have a question?
I have two questions. The first one is, if we were to unprocess a process deposit, what would that, and you show a journal entry results, what happens in the contribution module?
Essentially, the contributions go back to the state they had before of marking that they are pending being posted, and I believe that the deposit date clears out. It should if it's not, but it essentially sort of undoes the posting, and the contributions would return to the state they were before you posted them. Okay.
Second question, in Engage, what's the pros and cons between standard role and admin role? It sounds like everybody should have admin, but why wouldn't you want to give it to them?
So as an administrator, some of the things that you can do through Engage are change the URL for your Engage. So no one would be able to find it. You can control whether or not people can make changes. You can affect all the settings for the groups. Probably more importantly, you can get to payment administration. You can see every single charge that has been received from everyone by the organization. You can refund those, and you can see a list of people with expiring credit cards. So administrative access is really designed for your staff to be able to go in and administer Engage itself. If you were to give it to all your congregation members, I think you might have some people clicking things they shouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Sonia Smith, do you have a question?
Yes, my question is in regards to merging of the giving units. When I have attempted that in the past, or just like done the transfer, it affected the emails, because I know the email is directly connected with those individual accounts. So when we merge these together, does that also take into account the email that's connected to that account?
Yes. Yes. So any emails that you've configured on the giving unit record itself, for example, to receive email giving statements, those will all be merged together onto the one record. And then
No, not the giving record, but I'm referring to like when they go in and actually want to give through Engage,
Uh-huh.
their individual account that's set up, that stays with that attached to that email?
Yeah, so the individuals that they log into, if I had two individuals and they were each linked to their own giving unit, and then I merged them together, those two individuals are now linked to the one single giving unit. Engage also lets you choose what the default email address is for that giver to receive correspondence. And I believe that's going to remain the same for whatever the destination giving unit was.
So will they both still be able to log in with their own emails?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Doyle Roberts, do you have a question?
I do. I've heard you guys mention the mobile receipts app. Can you explain that?
Yes, absolutely. And just to put a brief note of context here, we really wanted to focus today's webinar on just CDM Plus and the things that are new there. The webinar a week from today will focus pretty extensively just on mobile receipts. So what mobile receipts lets you do is with CDM Plus Mobile, and if you're not using mobile, that's an app you download from the App Store or from Google Play. And you're able to add as many mobile devices as you'd like that connect into your database, as long as you're on hosting or the SaaS plan with us. There's no charge to those devices. And you can control what those devices are able to do in terms of, I've got a pastor who needs to see everybody, but maybe I've got a Bible study leader. All they can see are the people in their group and be able to take attendance. So mobile's been a companion app that sort of connects your database right to people wherever they are, whenever they are, for the better part of the last 10 years. Mobile receipts is a new function that you can turn on the devices that you would like to give it access to. And essentially, this allows people to do expense reporting directly into your CDM Plus accounting. So if I've got a church credit card, and Terry was using the Jimmy John's example, and I take the youth group over to Jimmy John's and I pay for it on my church credit card, currently you might need to fill out a form, staple the receipt, hand that over to your bookkeeper, or whatever your internal process is. With mobile receipts, you can simply pull your phone out, and you can say, I want to file a receipt. You can snap a picture of that receipt from Jimmy John's, say this is going to Jimmy John's who spent $32 on a youth ministry, and hit save, and that drops directly into accounts payable in CDM Plus in your invoice records, ready to go. You can do breakdowns. You can put things that were maybe paid off of a personal credit card and turn around and do a reimbursement for that. Essentially, it lets everybody contribute the expense reporting directly into CDM Plus.
And that's available currently, or that's coming?
That is available currently. So the only requirements there are that you update to 11.1 and that you're on hosting, and so you've got access to mobile. The mobile receipts is available, and sorry, I slightly misspoke. It's available on iOS for iPhones or iPads today. We have one last issue on the Android version that we're looking at to get sorted out with transferring provision codes. And once that's complete, we'll have that released out on Google Play and Amazon. So Chris, if you don't mind, go to the Help Center. Actually, Terry, can you flip over to a browser here? There's a really nice guide that just kind of walks you through how mobile receipts works over on our Help Center. The Help Center also has all the details on what's new in CDM Plus. There's plenty more that we didn't go into demo today. But to find that, you go to help.saran.com. And on this homepage here, you're going to scroll down and click on CDM Plus Mobile. And right at the top there's an article for mobile receipts. And it'll walk you through kind of how to set this up and so on. But Terry, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see there's the interface. So you're scanning in a receipt and filling out all your various pieces of information. And then down at the bottom, you'll get an email notice when that's been created, and you'll be able to see that using the scanned feature that Terry was demonstrating earlier.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy Jeffers, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a couple questions about 1099 forms.
Sure.
So my understanding is that if you pay rent to somebody for $600 or more, then you still use the 1099 MISC form. Is that true?
I believe so. Double check with the IRS. I can tell you that any of the we will still support the 1099 MISC. We're not replacing 1099 MISC with the NEC. We're simply adding the NEC. And I believe there is still a valid use for box 7.
Mhm.
And let's see, there was a really great article that I want to say it was our friends at Dynamic Systems shared that was about some of the changes. And let me see if I can find, I think we've got that maybe on one of our emails or something we sent out. But yes, you will still be able to print your 1099 MISC form just as you can today. So if you're paying rent, just still do that the same.
So I would print some 1099 MISCs and some 1099 NECs.
Correct. And the way you do that, Terry, do you mind to go ahead and switch back to CDM Plus and pull up vendor records?
Yep.
So in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a set of radio buttons that lets you choose between no, none, MISC, and INT. We're simply adding another option there for 1099 NEC. And so you would choose that to indicate that vendor gets the 1099 NEC. And then Terry, if you turn this on 1099 MISC down there, and then click that 1099 setup tab, you'll be able to see kind of how this is laid out. So if you're paying rent, that'll stay there. But anyone like this that's set to box 7, when they install the update with the 1099 NEC support, they'll automatically be flipped over to use that 1099 NEC.
Okay, so that NEC button hasn't been put in yet.
Correct. We're still building that out. Atrix, they've got their pieces ready for testing and so on. Knowing kind of their schedule, I suspect that's going to be out fully available. It's generally about the second mid-December, second, third week of December, they get their year-end update out the door. So once that's well before that, you'll be able to choose your NEC.
I have a question while you've got the vendor records up too. So we have some vendors who they have like a doing business as name. So like Joe's Lawn Care. And so that's the name, that's the vendor name. But then on their 1099, they filled out that they're really Joseph Smith is how I need to file the 1099.
Okay.
And so then I have to go in every year and change the vendor name to like Joseph Smith instead of Joe's Lawn Care. I guess I'm not the only one. So yeah, is there a way to like put in both names and easily select the correct one to when you print the 1099?
And you want to have sort of their official doing business as not be what you see in CDM Plus. So in CDM Plus,
right? If we cut them a check, they want it cut to Joe's Lawn Care.
Sure.
Which is why that's their vendor name. But then I want it to be, when I print my 1099s, I want it to say Joseph Smith. And so I have to change it and then I have to go back and change it back.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So Terry's dropped down this option here for the display name format, which lets you choose between vendor name, contact name, and then doing this last first name. I can tell you that feature was created for a couple of users that have a specific feature for managing investments and loans in CDM Plus and is not extensively supported. So that makes a lot of sense for us to maybe build that out so that you've got the vendor name format, but can enter that separately. Let me make a note for us to take a look at that. That feature may or may not be able to get that in for this year, but that makes a lot of sense to implement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Diane, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I would like if you could possibly add a feature that when you make a journal entry, you can click a box that says reverse this entry and allow you to put the date that the reverse, and it just makes it nice and clean.
Sure. So Terry, if you would, let me make sure I understand correctly. Let's go over to the ledger, and Terry, why don't you go ahead and just add a basic entry here. you know, pick some 5,000 account. You don't need anything fancy. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, and then Terry, change that transaction date to be like the 14th or something like that. And go ahead and save. So here I've got an entry from October 14th. If you want to reverse this, so Terry, go ahead and click void in the bottom left there and choose create offsetting entry.
Ah,
And
I
here
got it.
you can put whatever date you want and hit save and you're good to go.
Got it. I was looking for a box, a nice, neat
Gotcha.
little check box. I didn't think outside the box to go to
Sure.
void this and reverse. Yeah, I knew that was there, but didn't think that way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fred, did you have a question?
Yes, it's on web ministry tools.
Sure.
Does this go away now?
No, and I want to be very clear about exactly what's happening with web ministry tools. Web ministry tools is not really going away. There's no functionality there that we're necessarily taking out. Instead, we're merging and standardizing everything on the Engage platform, and that's a gradual process. So today, Plus 11.1 gives you that option to denote certain individuals have administrative features in Engage. As people get up and going on 11.1, for example, one thing you can do as an admin in Engage is get to payment administration. And we've actually started adding more features to payment administration in Engage. So as everybody that has WMT gets up and going on 11.1, we'll take payment administration out of web ministry tools and it'll just be Engage. So the same features there, it's simply been built over into Engage. There's a couple of features that are much larger that will get ported as we move through 2021. The biggest of which is online registration. But I know the developers are very excited to get into that process. As we go along, our goal is to have sort of what we call feature parity. Everything that WMT does, Engage does, but where we can improve and expand and add some more features, we'll also be looking to do that as well.
So it'll be duplicated?
Briefly, until we can get everyone up on 11.1. So right now, Terry's pulled up the fact that I've got my Engage settings in WMT on the right here. Then over on the left, we have those exact same settings in Engage. These exist and are essentially duplicated functionality because today we still have a number of people with Engage that are on 11.0 and they don't have the feature yet to be able to turn on their administrators and give them access to this section of Engage. So as people get up and updated to 11.1, what you see on the left in Engage is the only way you'll be able to set up your Engage, and we'll be taking that option out of web ministry tools.
Okay, so once you're on 11.1, it will be moved.
It's right now, they're both available, but once you update to 11.1, if you're looking for payment administration or you're looking to get to your setups, I'd recommend you just start using Engage for that. At some point, when you go to WMT and click on payment administration, it'll redirect you over to your Engage login.
Well, will new tools, for example, be moved to Engage?
New tools. Are you asking about the ability to create some of these tools?
Yes.
Yes. So we've been gradually migrating our tools over to the Engage functionality. There are really there's 5 tools that are still in use. There are several that are specific for some of our particular denominational partners. Women's Report for the Church of God, the Congregational Profile for the Disciples of Christ. The 3 that are still actively in use are the calendar tool, the directory tool, and the single event registration tool. So the directory tool is not listed here. We have 20 of those tools that are being actively used, and the intent is to migrate that over just to Engage groups. So if you're using a directory tool, we'll be in touch with you in the next month or two to find out how you're using it and make sure that we're able to migrate you over to using Engage successfully. Then we have the calendar and the registration tool. That functionality is going to be developed into Engage. So you'll be able to create and manage all of your calendars and your registrations through Engage instead.
But the interface will basically be the same.
I suspect it'll be fairly upgraded.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll essentially have all the functionality that's there, but with the registration tool, for example, we've got this great feature for tracking user fields on a registration. Makes a lot of sense to put permission forms and things like that. Those are things that we want to build in. We would build those into registration through Engage. Right now, you can register through Engage, and it registers yourself. Makes a lot of sense to be able to say, I want to register my kids or my whole family, or to be able to do just your guest registration through Engage. So it's all one consistent platform. So that's the direction it's headed.
One of the confusion points for me was how the contact, how you link registration, for example, to check in, check out.
How you would link registration to check in and check out?
Right.
Currently, there is no link between those two programs. Although it's funny you asked that, that's one of the items on the new feature survey is the ability to do a check-in against registrations. So that's something that we've had some questions about, and we'll be putting out there to see how much interest there is in that feature. But right now, check-in, check-out creates check-in records. It can also create attendance. Registration is a separate set of records in the program.
Okay, so there's no linkage now that you can do that.
Not currently, no.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Alex, I'm gonna jump in. I had someone in chat.
Oh, okay, sure.
He asked, is there any chance we can see a feature to import invoices from Excel format or CSV?
To import invoices? Possibly. I'm trying to think. There was a client out in Colorado that was using some kind of thing we did an import for, I want to say over in the ledger. That's a great question. We often do get questions about adding an import, and we have some tools for doing that internally. You need some knowledge about kind of how the program's put together to be able to do that effectively. What you might want to do is drop us a line over at support@cdmplus.com. And what would be most helpful to know is kind of the structure that you're getting there, what kind of tool that might be coming from, and then sort of how you might want that to work. And that's something we could look at quoting for custom development, or if it makes sense, maybe building in for everyone to take advantage of. I'll also just point out, again, it sounds like maybe you've got a separate product where you're getting some invoices, and that's totally fine. The mobile receipts feature does not require that you actually scan your invoices. You can just use it to basically crowdsource or democratize your accounting entry. Just ask people to say, here, type it into the mobile receipt, and that'll drop into accounting. That may not be thorough enough for your needs, but I do want to make sure everyone's clear. You don't have to snap pictures of your receipts if you don't want to, although that's very handy to have for accounting and auditing purposes. All right, here, I'll pull the chat up here. Charles, did that answer your question? Excellent, you're very welcome.
Hey, Alex, while you're looking at it, there's a question, another one in the chat. It's right above that. I don't know if you want to...
From Carolyn Fitzer?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering how to deal with a check issued to a business and the 1099 issued to the person in some situations, depending on their tax ID. I'm wondering here if you it kind of sounds like maybe you've got someone who's self-employed and they have both an FEIN and a social security number, and they provided both of them to you, and you're needing to produce a 1099 for that person. and wondering about kind of which would be the right identifier to put into the vendor record. Did I parse your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the IRS, their letter showed a sample and said, if they filled out the W-9 with their name on line 1, then use the Social Security. In that particular example, they had given us a W-9 with their personal name on line 1 and their business name in the doing business as, but they filled in both tax ID fields.
Okay.
And I just assumed, well, if you have a business number, that probably preempts the Social Security number, which wasn't true.
Oh, okay.
So I now know which one to pick, but it's still a question of if I want the check to go to the business name, I'm going to set the vendor up as the business.
Right.
But is there something that could be added on the 1099 setup screen to say which thing to print on the 1099?
Well, yeah. So I think this definitely connects into the other question we had about being able to have a specific name for the vendor to print on the 1099. So that's going to let you put in both names and then put the correct name for the 1099. There's only one ID number, I believe, on vendor records. Terry, if you could pull that up. And to the best of my knowledge, the only place that we use that ID number on the vendor is for sending data over to Atrix for the 1099 there. So that recipient ID number in the bottom right, I don't think you would need to put in both and tell CDM Plus which one to pick. You just need to put in the one that you want to have show up on the 1099.
I do understand that. I'm saying that right now the 1099 is going to grab what's in the vendor name field.
Right.
And if I have a person's name there, but the 1099 is supposed to go to their business name.
Correct. Yes.
And the check, how does it determine which name to put on the check? Is that what that other display name?
No, so right now it always prints the vendor name, and that's the name that's used when printing checks and in the written to field, and also when generating the 1099. The question we had a few questions back is about being able to add a separate field or being able to configure on the vendor a separate name that should come through on the 1099 as their business name, and that feature does not exist today. But it sounds like this is a very important one to add. So I'll work with the development to see maybe we could get it in ahead of January, which would be fantastic. I know for everyone, but if not January this year, certainly January next year, and that would let you set that up and handle it.
That's why I wasn't sure if all of these additional fields, when the vendor record was enhanced some time ago, if there was some way to utilize them to achieve what I was trying to make happen, but I didn't find anything in the online manual that gave any indication on when you added contact name and first name and last name and display name, what was there something driving all those additional fields on the vendor record?
Yeah, and it has nothing to do really with the 1099. Again, it was for a couple of clients that we had developed many years ago, software to manage. They hold investments and loans. These are larger offices that oversee a number of churches in their particular part of the country, and they basically run a whole loan program so people can come and invest, and churches can borrow money, and those investors are then generated interest, which is paid back out of those funds and so on. And all of this was built into CDM Plus, I want to say about 4 years back, for those two specific clients as a customization. And the vendor records are one of the ways that we facilitate making those payments to investors. And they wanted, as being individuals, to have separate first and last names and so on. So those were fields that were really implemented for that specific customization. But I think there's a very natural application to use those to handle the 1099 names. So that's likely where I'll start when I talk to development about how we would build this.
Okay, another choice, I guess, if you're saying that the tax ID is solely for the 1099, then maybe there's a field you could add by that also says 1099 name. So you
Sure.
can decide what should
Yeah.
appear on that based on what they wrote on their W-9.
Yeah, that.
Sometimes there's 2 or 3 different versions of themselves on that form, and it's like
Sure.
a puzzle.
Sure. Okay, did that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great.
Okay, Bethesda Mission, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. This is Richard Neal, and first I want to thank you for what all you're doing. I just appreciate the support. I have a question about the standalone version. And several updates back, something changed where when I'm making a batch contribution entry, you could uncheck the automatic load detail line for each default giving fund, and it would automatically tab from the total to the giving fund, and it doesn't do that anymore. It goes straight to the amount, and you have to take the mouse and click what giving fund that it's going to.
Okay. So let me make sure I note that exactly, and then I can kind of give you maybe some comment on that. So you're essentially saying you've got the feature turned on to automatically load a line for each fund in the batch, right?
I've got that unclicked. The bottom, check your bottom one that says automatically load. I uncheck that every time.
Okay.
And then when you tab from the total to the giving fund, it used to stop at the giving fund. And if you had a different fund you wanted to enter, then you could just tap on the first letter of that entry and then go on. But now you have to take your mouse and go back and pick it from the.
Sure. And there you go. Hey, Terry, hit Shift tab if you would. Okay.
So you didn't stop the giving fund.
Yeah. So you're right. No, that's a bug. That should, because you're not specifying the funds. You know, that we want that to go into the giving fund there for you. So I'll write that up and report it for the.
Okay, that's all I wanted. I felt like it had to be a bug, but I didn't know who to contact.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. Well, one thing I don't know if and Richard, again, thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate those. While you're in here, you reminded me, I don't know if anyone was on the webinar before Terry got started. We were running a slideshow kind of showing off some of the various features in 11.1. And one that we've added, which I know heading into January is going to be really nice. We had a question at a webinar back in May, just like I'm getting some really good ideas here about 1099s and so on. And someone said, you know, I get to the end of the year and I find that little checkbox there with the star on it for marking whether or not it's tax deductible, that was tagged incorrectly. But this contribution was from March and it's been posted and I can't change that. So one thing that we added in 11.1 is even if your contribution has been posted, you can modify that not tax deductible checkbox. You don't have to unpost or do anything like that. So hopefully I'll make things just a little bit easier trying to do some record cleanup when you get to year end and doing your reporting there. So extra little bonus feature there.
That's neat.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Karen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I figured out the answer to my original question. My credit card thing was grayed out, and I just figured out that, and I've been doing it as a journal entry all this time, and I just figured out that you could do a checkbox to call a credit card company and link it to your liability. So I guess my only question on that is there a reconcile function for it the way there is with bank accounts?
No, that's a great question, and that's something, you know, I use CDM Plus for my family's finances and sure would be handy. I don't have any ETA on that, but that makes a lot of sense. And you know what? Thank you for reminding me of that. I think when I'm talking with the devs about this bank rec import, we'll see if maybe they can lay some groundwork for being able to do a reconciliation to your credit cards.
Right. And Wells Fargo's bank statements are PDF only, but you can do what you were talking about as a download activity instead, as opposed to a bank statement.
Yeah, so that's going to be one thing I think as we sort of get this import feature built together, and there's so many different banks out there. I suspect we'll need to, one thing that we'll be doing as we go along is discovering, slight variations on what people's download formats look like and making sure we support all of those correctly. So we'll definitely start with hopefully a couple of the major ones. We'll also likely be looking for, I know at least one client is very keen to test this. If that's something that you're interested in testing, you could drop us a line. But we'll likely have that in one of our early adopter releases and try to get some feedback. I think we are going to need some sort of data file, whether it's a QIF or possibly maybe a CSV or something like that. Just we'll I think all learn together about all the different options that banks have.
Right, because they do have activity reports in those formats, just not the bank statement.
Right.
So
it may be a case where you just need to go and say, great, I want to add my bank statement. Like always, key in your end date, key in your ending balance, and save that, and then hit import activity. And you just need to be able to load that, export your activity for the date range given on the statement.
right. Okay. And then I wanted to report a glitch, which is that if I have to fuss with and it would be my own paycheck, but if I need to change things, sometimes the employer match on my pension just changes itself to the wrong number and you can't fix it. You just have to delete it and start over.
Okay. Would you mind to give us a call over on the support line at some point, and maybe generate just a mock payroll that you're not going to post, and get them on the screen and kind of walk them through, okay, if I click this, and this, that's when it gets off. Something like that would actually be put in as an escalated bug, so we get it fixed out as soon as possible.
All right, that sounds good.
Appreciate that.
All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, it looks like Jody, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
So I had a couple questions about event registration, and I don't know if it's that I'm not setting something up correctly or if they just aren't things that I can do at this point. And if they aren't, I would like to suggest them as future feature changes.
Okay.
First is that as we set up the registration, we find the individual to register the attendee, but when we go to enter, or when the person goes in to enter the contact information, they can't find themselves. They have to enter everything in individually. So we save time for the attendee, but not for the contact. And if there's two people that are required for a contact in some cases, then it's a lot of data entry. So I was just wondering if there's a way, if that's already set up and I just don't know how to do it correctly, or if that's something you would consider as being able to populate the contact information from the list of individuals that show up above.
Sure. Let me make sure I clarify. Are you doing the entry through CDM Plus, or are they registering themselves online?
They're registering themselves online.
Okay, perfect.
We set up a tool, to registration, and they go online and enter everything.
So the intent here is, right now you can create the registration tool, and if you use certainly the publish to engage feature, when someone logs into Engage, they can register, and it pre-fills them as the attendee. And this is a feature I mentioned a little bit before. Currently, to answer your question, no, there's not a way to preload the contact. But this is where getting everything sort of linked wholly through Engage makes a lot of sense, that I can go and I can click register, and because you're logged in as yourself, we know who you are, we know all the other people connected on your address record for your family. We even know if you've got connections established over to other individuals, grandparents, guardians, that sort of thing, maybe if you have a separated family. So what makes a lot of sense, and I think the way we will handle this is down the road, when you go to click register and Engage, before you even get to that registration form, it's going to show you everyone in your family, and it's going to say, who are you registering today, and who of these people are going to be the contacts. So if I'm registering my daughter and my wife and I are the primary contacts, I can say, yep, Ab is the registrant, Abby's contact 1, Alex is contact 2, and then when you hit next, it's all preloaded across the board.
Okay. So are we, we've been doing this now like for 3 years. I think we've been doing our faith formation program through event registration. We have just kept using the tool under web ministry tools. Should we be, if we're using Engage, should we be setting it up differently in Engage now? Since that's, or are we still supposed to be going to, we go under event registration, create the, copy the event or recreate the event, and then we go over to web ministry tools and we do it under there as a tool rather than, and like we're not doing anything in Engage right now. Should we be doing it in Engage instead?
So all the setup,
or is that not?
Yeah, all the setup that you're doing in web ministry tools, that's where you're doing it. That is the correct place, and that's where you do all the setup. Yeah. The only difference is you can publish. When you publish the tool, you can get a link or a QR code. Use that online, social, that sort of thing. You have a checkbox that lets you publish that to Engage, and what that means is what Terry. I don't know if you can switch over to Engage. I don't know if you have any published in your setup there. But when someone logs into Engage, you've got a registrations tab or option in the menu at the top there for your events. And when you click on events, it looks like Terry doesn't have any, but if you have open registrations, they're going to show up right there for you the person just tap register and it preloads and pre-links them. The other thing Engage lets you do is if you have a paid event and you're maybe accepting partial payments, someone can come back in through Engage, whether they register through Engage or not, as long as it's linked to their individual, they can go to this event tab and they can find registrations where they have a balance due and they can make an additional payment through Engage.
Okay. So is the thing that I'm not doing is checking that box to have it go through Engage and we're missing that step? Is that what's causing the problem for me?
Again, even if you publish to Engage, it's not going to preload their contact information. That just doesn't exist today, but I do expect.
Okay, but it's coming.
Yes.
Okay, then it's tied to kind of to my next question. Then is that if they this is the time, like maybe once or twice a year, where we capture some, or we communicate with some of these people, and if they've had changes to the addresses or phone numbers or different things, they might make the changes in their event registration as they're registering, but it doesn't filter up into their individual records or their address record. Is that going to be something that's coming to them or with Engage? Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, and that again, as we sort of tighten everything into that Engage and look at expanding what the registration tool does, being able to capture updates to their information through the registration and flow that back all the way to their individual record makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Carl, do you have a question for us?
Yes, I have a question. We have a website that we have embedded or engaged into, and for the last several months, we've had an issue where it basically kind of times out. And in fact, there's times when you log in and you hit log in and it'll just, stuff will disappear. It'll say signing in and it'll just go nowhere. Now, when we go to the link that you give us for Engage separately, there's no problem. It's just when we have embedded it into our website that we have issues. And we like to embed things into our website to keep people kind of in our website. So I just, have you guys done anything different? It seems like it doesn't refresh. I mean, immediately there's a message that says, "Are you doing anything?" And then
okay,
and then all of a sudden immediately. So
gotcha. Okay, so a couple of things. One, if you wouldn't mind to drop us an email over to support and give us the link to where your Engage is. And then also, if you don't mind to share kind of what either management system or web development platform you might be using for your website that has the embedding, that'll help us understand from a technical level kind of how that's done. So to answer your question directly, yes, there was a change that came out. I want to say, I'm going to say it was either May or July, somewhere kind of mid-year, that Engage will automatically time you out after inactivity. So the intent here is let's say you log into Engage and you walk away from your computer after, I want to say it's 30 minutes or so, we're going to say, are you still there? Nope, we're going to log you out. Because while you're logged in, you know, if someone wanted to walk up to your machine and sit down, they could see your information, make, you know, charges against your payment information, see people in groups and so on. So that's a security feature we added. And it sounds like the way that's built is not particularly compatible with how you're embedding the Engage onto your website. So this really sounds like a strictly technical issue. So if you can give us some details on kind of how you're embedding Engage, we'll get that over to the devs and see if they can't get those to play nicely together.
Okay, and I have another question in that, but a kind of a follow-up is now we've kind of taken it out of the embed because of this issue. So, but I can give you all the information.
Okay.
The other question is, do you have a date on which the fee assistance is going to be launched?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're doing a webinar on it in 2 weeks, and I confirmed with the development team about a couple hours ago to say, hey, how are you guys looking on this? And the webinar from 2 weeks from now, we will definitely be demoing at least sort of the maybe a beta or internal feature if it's not live by then. The developers, they first needed to get all of the setup for Engage Giving ported into Engage, which is everything from your staff emails to text giving funds to giving sets and all of that. So they've been busy getting all that ported over, and that's gone over to internal testing now. So they're actively working on fee assist, and you know, absolutely by the end of November. The latest word that I got was they're cautiously optimistic it'll be over for our internal testing by the end of next week. As soon as we get that tested, it's going to go out live for you.
All right, thank you very much, and appreciate. Oh, I'm sorry. One more question.
Sure.
The on Engage for employees, when you print a pay stub in California, they require you to put on your sick time available, and I've noticed that it's not available on there yet. And in fact, I haven't tested it in a while, but I also had problems where it wouldn't, and I've already talked to a tech about this, it wouldn't figure out 0.000. It only did it in integers, not point whatever. So sometimes our sick time is only 0.5, and it would never show up as 0.5. It would always show up as 1.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's a couple of things to that. I won't bore you through all the technicalities of the answer, but stay tuned. The short of this is we've got a feature for tracking time off that is really sort of an evolution above what's in the program now, and it was developed for a version of our software that we provide to another company. It's not in CDM Plus, but it's on the same code base, if that makes sense. And that feature, which is called time off plans, was built to handle California's time off requirements. So it does things like automatically resets on your hire date, tracks max accruals and that sort of thing. And so our intent, we just hasn't seemed to be sort of, there always seems to be one thing that's a little more important to get in than that. But the intent is to basically add that feature. Once that's available, you know, lighting up all of that time off information in Engage makes a lot of sense. So yeah, let me make a note to see if we can't escalate getting that in sooner rather than later.
Well, and the point, you know, the integer problem. I mean, like I said, like we have slow, you know, they get their free or not free, they get their times. It takes a longer time for them because they don't work as many hours, and so we got to make sure we keep track of those smaller integers, and I've monopolized my time, and I apologize. And
oh no, that's okay. You're very welcome. Yeah. That's let me see what we can't do on that, and that's going to be good for everybody if we can get that feature linked in and activated, which I would very much like to do.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, I don't see anyone else coming through here. So again, I greatly appreciate everybody's time today. We'll send out that link. We hope you enjoy 11.1, some of the refinements and so on we've got. We're excited to get some of the things we talked about here today, put on the development schedule, talk about maybe, it sounds like particularly some of these 1099 items, get those in place. And then we're very much looking forward to building the next great features for you. So hope everyone takes care. Have a good and safe Halloween weekend. Stay safe out there with some of those storms. And come back and see us next week. And we'll talk about mobile receipts in detail.